Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. I'm going to give it just a second. This Sunday morning, February 23rd, day 23 of 4:44 a.m.s with Michelle. We are having a little technical issues, but it looks like everything is working great now. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Yesterday, we talked about our thoughts and how they are incorporated into our day. And we talked a little bit about how thoughts come in and why they come in. Even though we're bombarded with information coming at us all day long, our brain is really responsible for helping us take control of what we're thinking about and what's coming in. And so as we do those things and we think about different things, there's things that get highlighted in our life based off of the way that we're thinking. So I got to share a personal story. I'm really excited about this. God is so good at just lining things up perfectly. I'm doing a study right now, which I'll talk about in just a minute, but that study is a 6-week study. And normally on a Friday right now with this study, I will watch a video in the morning and do some journaling and some notes. And then Friday afternoon, they actually have a live discussion. So a bunch of people get on and talk about what we read that week, some of the questions from the video that I watched that morning. It's a live discussion. It kind of helps engage and think about differently and hear other people's perspectives. Well, I had an appointment at the exact same time as the live discussion. So I had to watch the replay later. And I watched the replay yesterday morning, right after we did our live together. And I loved it because it was on thinking and thoughts. And so when I tell you that our brains take in information and when we start thinking about something, God also uses that something to speak to us and puts those thoughts and ideas in our head. He's so good to us that he just gives us the, hey, I want to talk to you about this. We're going to talk about it for a few days. Here's some examples. So the Bible study I'm doing is actually off a book by Lysa and I'll put the link in the description so you guys can go check it out. But she is talking about this week. The book is called I Want to Trust You, But I Don't. And the study guide and the devotional that goes with it. This week we are talking about thoughts and the thinking. So in Ephesians 4:17 through 24, which I'll read here in a minute, Paul is addressing the way the Ephesians are thinking in his letter. So what did I say? 4:17 through 24. Okay. So I tell you this and insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do, in the futility of their thinking. They are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to having hardened of their hearts. Having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality, as so to indulge in every kind of impurity, and they are full of greed. And so when we read this and start thinking about it, the biggest thing that I take away is what the Gentiles were thinking of, the non-Jews. And he's calling out exactly what the types of thinking they had are going through. The word futility, one of the things that in the life study she kind of helps us go through and talk about it, is that that word just kind of means like a useless act or gesture. You're aimless, you're walking around, and it's an empty and without purpose. And purpose is actually what we're going to talk about in the next day or two. So I love that the Lord just kind of takes us on this journey of we're learning one thing and it applies to the next thing and it applies to the next thing. And I love that about him. So what he wants us to do is, stop aimlessly walking around and aimlessly doing different things. We need that focus. We need that goal. We need that ambition and that drive to get closer to the Lord, to build our bodies as foundations, to truly be able to do the work that he's called us to do. And so when we think about how, in this case, the Gentiles were compromised in the way that they were thinking, um, they they instead of thinking on the positive things, they were thinking on the negative. And when I read this, there's some key words that like popped out, and it was talking about different types of greed, impurity, just the ignorance of it all, not knowing the word and knowing the word of God. So going back to why it's important for us to get that God time in, their hearts had become hardened from it. When I grew up in the church, and went to a wonderful church as I was growing up through high school. When I went to college, I didn't have the same people around me to help support me. And so I didn't turn my back on God per se, but what I like to call is an unintentional drift. I just started little by little, degree by degree, drifting away from what I knew as a foundation. Um, I've heard the analogy before, if a plane starts out flying in Florida and it's headed to Seattle, a 1 degree shift by the time it got there, it would never make it to Seattle. And so when we think about that in our lives and the different things we do, that unintentional drift is a big thing. And you can see, but by what they were doing, they had drifted, and then they had hardened hearts, and now they were just not where they needed to be. And so they had to change the way that they were thinking in order to really start to believe the things of God and the things that Jesus taught them to do. So I love how God aligns things. I've said before, there's no coincidences, only God incidences. And I have a friend that sends me a Bible verse just about every day. And yesterday's verse that was sent was Proverbs 14:15. And it says, "The simple believe anything, but the prudent give thoughts to their steps." And so again, it's right back to that thoughts. How are we thinking? What are we thinking about? So the hardest part of doing all this is really realizing that you have that negative thinking. And so the first thing we got to do is make sure that we acknowledge that we have that negative thinking. If you listen to my story yesterday, I didn't even realize I was thinking negatively about myself. Once I got into the position to start thinking about my thoughts, then I realized that my little itty bitty committee in my head was really telling me I couldn't do it, and I wasn't, and it was super negative. And I don't know how long that had been going on in my life. And it was kind of a real eye opener to me. So once you acknowledge that negative thinking, then you can move forward. And so once you acknowledge it, you have to pretend that it's. You can't pretend. You can't pretend that they're not there. You've got to stop ignoring the thinking that's going on in your head. They're not okay. It's not okay to talk to ourselves like that. And if you're not truly taking them captive, like we read yesterday, they're just going to keep creeping back in. Take a step back. Once you start having those negative thoughts, take a step back. What are you doing? Are you on social media? Are you at work? Are you around a certain person that kind of brings out negative traits? Start thinking about your surroundings when you're thinking about negative things, and will start to help you put together maybe why those negative thoughts are coming in. Once you acknowledge him, the itty bitty committee's job is to keep you safe. And so what has started as this underlying, well, I'm scared, I'm fearful of what I'm about to do, these negative things are coming in, they can actually be changed to a helpful committee. In that, when I learned about that, we actually got to name our itty bitty committee, and there's multiple different voices in there, but my main one that I wanted to get rid of, I called him Scar, and getting rid of that negative voice and moving it into a more positive one, which I called Grace, really gave me that that feeling like I had control over what was going on in my thoughts. Grace is much more of a guider and a leader. Scar was very negative and a pushback on everything I wanted to do. So if you start thinking about that, it will transition. Even some of our thoughts, we're allowed to feel them. I just had a situation where my son was telling me, "Mom, I feel sad." And I was like, it's okay to do that. Even Jesus wept. It clearly said that he had emotions, but it's when those emotions take over that we run into those problems. So when you feel them, where are you feeling them? Are you feeling them in your chest? Are you feeling them in your legs? Does your body shake? I mean, all of the different physical emotions that, physical activities that happen when your emotions are involved are part of those thoughts as well. So it's really the awareness of what's going on. The next thing to do, I kind of jokingly just get to say, thank you, Scar, for bringing that to my attention. I'm moving forward with grace in this aspect. And by doing that, it kind of helps push the negative thinking to the side. So I really want to read yesterday's verse again, which was Proverbs 4:8, that tells us truly what we should be thinking about. So as you start to really acknowledge the thoughts that you're having, I suggest spending some time journaling with them, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes, or when you notice something, grab a Post-it note and just start writing down how you're feeling, what your thoughts are, so that you can switch them to the ones that I'm about to read. So again, this is Proverbs 4:8, and it says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, and whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. So my challenge for you today is to start thinking of your thoughts, and when they come in, can they be replaced by these? If you like the idea of naming your thoughts to give it that personality, let me know what you call your negative thoughts, and let me know what you call your positive thoughts in the comments. I know it seems silly, but it really helped kind of ingrain, who am I listening to? What thoughts am I listening to in my head? So I'm going to talk more about purpose in the next couple of days. So check that out. Hit subscribe so you'll see when I go live to talk about that. And like and share this with a friend if it's helpful. And revisit this. If you start thinking negatively, come back and listen to that. Grab your Bible and read Proverbs 4:8 a couple times and really ingrain those good things that we think about into our minds. Can't wait to see you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.